What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another match preview stream. And yes, it does not get any easier as we face Manchester City at the Etihad tomorrow. And what do we want out of this game, Sim?
I don't know. I don't know. I just want it to be over. That's what. That's all I know. I just want it to be
end the season now. Come on.
Honestly, it's kind of a lose-lose situation on tomorrow, to be honest, with Arsenal leading Man City by 8 points. Spurs obviously not in a title race, and obviously in a dogfight for top four right now. If we beat Man City, we're giving Arsenal a massive advantage in the title race. If we lose, we're losing more ground in the top four race. So I'm not really sure what I want out of Thursday, but all I know is I'm not really going to be feeling great after the game, whatever happens, really. But look, if we can get a victory, obviously, there's hope. It could give us confidence and kickstart our season, but there's very little hope that we will go and repeat our heroics of last season when we did win 3-2 at the Etihad in what was unbelievable display.
And if we do go get a win tomorrow, are we hoping that Manchester United lose on the weekend? Because then we'll be kind of knocking on that door again.
You'd have to hope so. I mean, because we need top four. So they're the,
So we're hoping Arsenal go even further clear in the league, because there's Arsenal Man United on the weekend.
Yeah, I know. It's not great.
It's really a terrible, terrible, terrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
Really is. I mean, I guess we just got to put the Arsenal Man U games in the back of my minds and just focus on Newcastle, I guess.
Yeah, and try and get them, but they're looking like unstoppable at the moment. But whatever. Forget the top four race for a moment. Just looking at the game tomorrow, it's going to be extremely difficult, even though Man City are not on the best of forms. Look, Man City are not playing great at the moment. Drawing at home to Everton, they lost to Man United. Even in wins recently, they haven't quite been at their sharpest.
Yeah.
So there probably is an opportunity, if we play our cards right, to get a result. But we're not in the same... I mean, I guess last season...
We just lost to Burnley.
It was a similar situation. We just lost 4 out of 5 games, I think.
Yeah.
Last season,
it's a very similar situation.
Went to the Etihad. So
similar time of year as well, wasn't it?
It was also about February time, and it really did kickstart our season when we got the win.
Yeah, because when you look at it, like this time last year, we were nowhere near top four. We were kind of thinking the same as we are now. Obviously, Arsenal weren't top of the league, and it didn't give us that extra little kick down in the ground. But we had no chance of top four. We were losing every week, or 4 of the last 5 games. We had just lost to Burnley, and Antonio Conte did that scathing post-match interview after that game, and we all thought, is this the end of Antonio Conte already? And we're kind of in exactly the same position right now, aren't we? Like, we don't know the future of Conte. We don't think we're going to get top 4. Everything's doom and gloom. Can we turn it around?
I mean, if it'll be very Spursy to do it, lose against Villa and lose against Arsenal and then turn it around against Man City. I mean, we've seen it before, so I wouldn't completely rule it out. I think, obviously, the way we're playing is not good enough. The last away game we did have was a 4-0 win against Crystal Palace, but the way we're going into games and the way we're starting games, we could easily be 2-0 down in 15 minutes against Man City if we're not careful, the way we've started games. So from that point of view, we keep saying, we need to change our approach, we need to change this, to change that, and nothing seems to be changing right now in first halves of football. So to sit here and say, we can now all of a sudden switch up and turn it around is, some would say it's foolish to think that, but we do have the capability in the squad to hurt Man City going forward. We know that, whether it be Kane or whether it be Son or Richarlison starting in the front line. We know we have Kulusevski's going to start, Kane's going to start. If Kane can perform like he did last season, then we do have every opportunity, but we have to stop making silly mistakes in the back line. And to be honest, we did make one last season as well. Lloris made a howler for Man City's equaliser, and we did turn it around, but we have to... Well, right now, what keeps happening is we're in games and we make howlers and the team just drop in confidence after these mistakes. And it really hurts our chances of getting points at the game right now. It's almost as if the players are expecting the mistakes, it feels like. And once we see a mistake from Dyer or from Lloris or from, Davis or Longlegs or Emerson and Doherty,
keep going.
Yeah, keep going throughout the whole squad. But once we see those mistakes, it's like, it's like, oh, here we go again, and then all of a sudden you see the body language drop. So if we are going to get a result out of Man City, we have to stop with these massive unforced individual mistakes. Like, we can't afford Lloris chucking the ball in the net like he did against Arsenal and go 1-0 down. But having said that, if we can be solid at the back, look, we play in a way that can hurt Man City. They won't like to play against us. They leave space in behind, especially if they're going to play. I've seen that Diaz and Stones are fit. If they're going to play those two at the back, I'd much rather be facing them than be facing Akanji and maybe Ake and Laporte, because they're a lot more. We're a lot more able to get at those kind of defenders who are very technical, very good playing out the back, very good positionally, but can be got at when it comes to a physical aspect. You can bully them.
As we saw last season.
You can sprint past them. I really hope Walker doesn't play. I think it's a massive advantage if Walker. I remember at the beginning when we were going to play them last game, Walker was going to be out. He was injured, and that was a big advantage for us having Son on that side. But it looks like Walker's going to be fit again, and that's he's really good. One of his big strengths is cutting out counter attacks, and that's a big problem for us. But they did play Walker last season, we won, so it's not be all and end all. But if they are going to play Diaz and Stones, I reckon that's a bit of an advantage for us rather than Ake and Akanji in a weird way.
The problem is Heung-Min Son, to be honest. I think that we all know how dangerous and lethal Heung-Min Son is against Manchester City. But with the form he's on, Richarlison back fit now, what do you do with that situation?
We had the same conversation when we played City, when we were going to play City early in the season before it got cancelled.
I think it's the
same conversation we had.
It's the same conversation, but Son has been bad now for that long. Back then it was like, maybe a couple of bad performances, but now it's been half a season, literally.
But you're taking away our biggest threat with the space that Man City leave. He is our biggest threat, so you're taking that out of the team. As much as Richarlison is also decent at that, to be honest, he's also pretty good at running into space. No one in the squad is as good as Son at that. So,
but he's just not doing it. And he's been so poor now. And I mean, I think it's time. Maybe one last game, but I think it's time for him to come out the team for a game or two. As much as I love Sonny, as much as I think what a brilliant player he is, there's just something not right with him. Whether it's confidence, whatever it is. And I don't know. I just can't sit through another Sonny performance like that.
I think he's coming into congested areas too often, and that's not where he's at his best, where he's at his strongest. He's getting into areas where he's getting too close to strong midfielders and he's getting too easily dispossessed. But if we can get him in a situation against that Man City backline where he's on the shoulder, we know how Man City play. They like to press really high. They like to pen you in. And that could really suit Sonny. And I know you could say the same about Arsenal, but the difference between Arsenal and City is that Arsenal have very physical and very fast defenders. When you look at Saliba, you look at Gabriel, and also he was our build-up play against Arsenal was nowhere near good enough, and it led to Son coming into central areas. We have to make sure Son isn't coming deep in these areas. We have to, like the first goal against Man City last season, he's on the shoulder, ready to break the line, ready to exploit the space. That's exactly where we need Son in these kind of games, and I do feel like. Yes, logically he deserves to come out of the team the way he's playing, 100%, and I do agree with that. I just feel like this isn't the game to take him out. I feel like we need him in this kind of game. And who do we have next? Fulham. Against Fulham, I completely agree. If we were playing Fulham tomorrow, I would agree, take him out, because I do believe Richarlison would be better suited to that kind of game. But just because it's Man City and the way they play and the space they leave, it's like you're taking him out for the perfect game suited to him kind of thing. And I think maybe that wouldn't be the right time.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from, to be honest. I really do. And I do know, he's always our biggest threat against Manchester City. His attributes of a footballer really it's just more than suited to this game. So, yeah, I probably agree with you to a certain extent, but I just think the way he's playing his football is just not helping anyone at the moment. But in terms of the form of the two teams coming into it, Funnily enough, Spurs and Man City have a near to identical form in the last 5 games. 2 losses, 2 wins and a draw coming into it, which you wouldn't have thought that. But what's going on with Man City at the moment? Because I'm hearing murmurings that some fans of the Man City think they're better without Haaland, even though the amount of goals he's scoring. He's on a bit of a drought with no goals in his last 3 games. How do we combat the Haaland threat?
That's the big difference between what Man City were last season and this season. In terms of, I'm not talking about how Man City play in generally, but if I just go back to the game at the Etihad, Man City did have a lot of possession. They were penning us in. We were dynamite on the counter-attack, but what we were very good at is because Man City didn't have a proper number 9 last season. I think they were playing Gundogan in the false 9. They didn't have very physical threats in the box, so that we were happy for Man City to kind of just pump crosses into the box and kind of play it in and around the penalty area, knowing the fact that in Romero, Dyer and Davis, we could physically cope with what they had to offer because they didn't have a very physical threat in the penalty area. They didn't have a player who we're really worried about when crosses come in. This season is very different. It's very different with Haaland there. He gobbles up anything in the box. He's a big threat aerially when it comes to crossing the box. Obviously, running in behind is a big threat, but I don't think we're going to have to be too worried about that kind of threat tomorrow. It's more about when we're sitting deep, his movement, his strength. And unfortunately, they've gone from having no real physical threats to having a big physical threat, which we can't handle, I don't think. And it's going to be a big job trying to shut him out. I think the best way to do it is try to clog up the central areas and make sure he gets no space. Make sure if he does get a touch, he's not allowed to turn. Making sure that he's not getting a run on you. But unfortunately, the sad reality at the moment is our defenders. And I put Romero in this category. I don't think they're capable of stopping him when it comes to if they got good delivery. So we're going to have to try our best to stop the supply. And I don't know how we do that in a 3-4-3, stopping that supply to Haaland. It's going to be very difficult because we're going to get dominated in the central areas. We know that. The build-up play is going to be near impossible to stop. And we didn't even stop it last season. That's not how we stopped City. It was more about stopping when the supply got into the front line. We were able to cut it out. But this time it's about stopping the supply. And the only way I see that is in a 3-5-2, to be honest. But then if you play a 3-5-2, you're cutting out the creativity of Kulusevski on the counter-attack, that decision-making that was so vital last season in that game. So it's going to be difficult. I don't really see a solution which is foolproof, to be honest, going into it. How do we stop the supply to Haaland from the wide areas? How do we stop
Unless we play Kulu at right wing-back.
We could do that. But it's a hell of a game to try it. But yeah, we could do it. We could try it.
I'd be up for doing it, man, because I think that defensively, Kulusevski is a workhorse. And I think defensively, he could actually be better than Doherty. It's
one thing trying hard, it's another thing being good defensively. You know what I mean? You have to being talented, being defensively minded. There's one thing tracking back. There's another thing having the timing of the tackle and the defensive positioning. You know, knowing where to be and all these kind of things, and that's obviously hard. That's hard to go into a game, especially against Man City, where you have to be defensively so solid. Having just experimenting with Kulusevski at wing back in that kind of game is difficult.
But when Kulusevski first came to the club, that's the one thing Conte said. Oh yeah, he can be good at right wing back. He can play at right wing back. And I think he's got the attributes that he can do that job. I really do. He's a really good ball carrier, got great ability in terms of getting the ball into the box and his crossing ability creatively. And I think that he works hard enough and he's defensively good enough as well to do the defensive job. And I don't see Doherty or Perisic being being that good defensively anyway.
Yeah, we had Emerson there last season, who's obviously a much better defender, and because of his pace, he was also able to support the attack when we needed, although we know when he gets in those positions, he's not great, but at least he was in those positions to make Man City think when we did break. If we had Kulu there, look,
At the end of the day, at some point, we're going to have to try something new because what we're doing isn't working at the moment. That's the honest truth of it. And I feel like that could be something that could see us really, influence the game in a positive way tomorrow.
And it would be an interesting tactic if Conte was to go for that, a 3-5-2 of Kulusevski and Perisic as wing-backs. I just feel like in the wide areas, I still feel like they're going to be able to get crosses in way too easily, and they're going to be able to get in behind Perisic and Kulusevski way too easily with those two there.
But I think that the case would be the same if it was Doherty and Perisic as well. That's the thing. That's the thing. And at least if Kulusevski and Perisic are there, we know that when we go forward, when we have the chance to counter-attack, we've got Perisic on one side, Kulu on the other side, Kane and Son in the central areas. I think brilliant options.
When we go forward, if we have the chances to go forward, all of a sudden we're big threats, 100%. If we're those four going forward on the counter-attack with maybe one of the midfielders as well, we are starting to look like very threatening, especially against a back line where you think there should be a lot of space if they're going to try and frustrate us. Look, it could be an option. I don't see Conte trying it tomorrow.
Yeah, me neither, to be fair.
I think he's more likely to go with Emerson on the right-hand side. Someone who's quick, strong, good in the air, and more defensively solid. And I do see us being more defensively solid if Emerson's there. So I would go with Emerson on the right, on the left, probably go with Perisic again. Go with Perisic. I know he's got his reservations defensively with the fact that we had a whole week break and he went with Sessegnon. So that tells me he had big reservations about having Perisic up against Bukayo Saka. But who's he going to be facing? Who's Perisic going to be facing this time? Mahrez, probably, on that side. I'm more comfortable him facing Mahrez, but there's still a bit of a worry there, of course. I feel like with Mahrez, the difference in Mahrez and Saka, Saka's probably faster than Mahrez. Mahrez, with the ball at his feet, is fantastic and go inside, outside. I feel like Perisic would be more capable of frustrating Mahrez than he would of Bukayo Saka. So maybe that's why I would stick with. And I also feel like Mahrez is less likely to track back than Saka was. So there might be more space for someone like Perisic. But last season we had Emerson and Sessegnon, and they both did good jobs in that game. But obviously Sessegnon's really out of form. Emerson hasn't played the last few games. I reckon he is going to go with Emerson on the right.
Yeah, I kind of got a feeling as well, to be honest. He's done such a great job there the last season as well. As much as people like want to clown on Emerson and fans don't like him, and me and you want to see him sold as well. But the fact of the matter is, in the big games away from home last year at Anfield and at the Etihad, he stood up for the team, and he was probably, I think he got man of the match in both games, didn't he? Or he got man of the match at Anfield.
Yeah.
I don't know if he got man of the match at the Etihad.
Look, as much as Emerson isn't good enough for what we need, and as well, it's not like he's had big games where he hasn't played well. These aren't the games where Spurs fans lose their shit over him. I mean, he can do better even in these games, 100%. Like I remember against Man City at the Etihad, how many times he was free on the right hand side in space, and we're breaking, and it breaks down because of him. But he does know how to defend. He is a lot harder to beat on the right-hand side than our current options. And he can put in good defensive displays for the team, which is not needed in these kind of games. So these aren't the games where he proves that he's not good enough. What he proves he's not good enough is the majority of the other games where he's tasked with getting a lot of emphasis on him attacking and things like that. And that's where the belief in him breaks down. So I think he will. I think he will go with him on the right-hand side. I did find it interesting he went with Doherty and Sessegnon on Sunday. I wonder if obviously he had this game in mind when he did that, or what he was thinking. Because is he gonna? If it was purely tactical, is he gonna go with Sessegnon again on Thursday because he's worried about the pace, or is it purely maybe he was thinking he can't play Perisic and Doherty both games in a row, and he's gonna need to rotate, so he's gonna go with Sessegnon and Doherty, and then Emerson and Perisic on Thursday. I feel like he might be doing that, but it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think the reason he took Perisic out of the team is because he'd played just before that 2 games in the space of a week. I know he had a week rest, but I just feel like, he's got aging legs, Perisic. People forget how old he actually was. 33 years old, Perisic.
Did he play against Portsmouth?
No, he didn't. Sorry, he didn't. He played in Crystal Palace and the game before that, 2 games in a week. Then what was it? Who did we play before Palace?
We played Villa.
Yeah, he played in the Villa game 90 minutes, and then he played 90 minutes in the Palace game.
Okay, but then he had a week. Then he had a game off against Portsmouth, and then a whole week off. So he had 10 days off. I don't think that's an excuse.
But I mean, like, what other choice it is? Because surely
That should be tactical.
Surely you play Perisic and not Doherty if you're
That's what I
going to
would've
go
done.
out the two. Like, Perisic gives you that elite threat going forward, right? Doherty gives you an okay threat sometimes, and you have to go with Perisic and Emerson if you were going to go with one of the defensive ones and one of the attacking ones. That's just the obvious choice, and I hope he goes with that tomorrow. I really do.
That's what I think he will. I think he will do, and I think Emerson and Perisic are more suited to dealing with the City wingers than Doherty and Sessegnon were of dealing with Martinelli and Saka. Not saying it's going to be easy.
It's just extreme pace that Arsenal and Man City just don't have that extreme pace.
Yes.
It's more technical ability.
They used to have obviously Sterling and Sane and that those when they had the ball at their feet, they strike the life out of you. When it comes to Mahrez and Grealish or a Foden, obviously fantastic technical players, all brilliant. But when it comes to just pure pace and one-on-one dribbling, I'm less worried about them than I am about Saka and Martinelli in that sense.
I agree. When you look at the last 5 times we played Man City, 4 wins and 1 loss.
Yeah, I thought that was a mistake. I was like, is that all green Tottenham? I saw that switch. All the green is City. It's like, no, that is actually right. Bloody hell.
And it's like, when you look at that, Spurs against Man City, who have been the best team in the league for the past however long it's been, 5 years, 4 years, let's say, you would have thought Spurs would be doing a lot better than they are. How do we do this every year against Man City?
Every year. Do you reckon we've won any of those games on XG?
No.
Probably not. We've probably lost every single one of them. I mean, it's incredible how we just do it to them every single time. It's mad.
I think in every one of those games, they've probably had more than triple the shots that we've had.
Yeah, and possession massively dominating like every time. To be fair, I actually think the one of the Etihad was probably our best performance out of the lot. That was one where because the goals we conceded, we didn't concede any chances really, clear-cut chances. The goals we conceded, one was a massive howler from Lloris, and then there was a 90th minute penalty when Romero was blocking a shot and it hit his hand. So it wasn't exactly like those were really clear-cut opportunities either. And then other than that, Lloris made one save from outside the box from Gundogan, didn't really have opportunities, and we were the ones creating all the chances on the break.
Yeah.
So that was like a near perfect display last season. The other ones, there was, I think, big elements of luck in a lot of those other wins that we've had against Man City, especially keeping clean sheets. Like, I remember one, they've missed penalties. There was one where Sterling missed an open goal after going round Lloris. Aguero's missed penalties, Gundogan's missed penalties. We've definitely ridden our luck against Man City previously, but the one again under Conte.
VAR
was the one,
as well.
we've had VARs, big lucky VAR decisions.
So I remember that when we beat them in the Champions League, didn't we have VAR that literal next week, or maybe it was the start of the next season? We had a very similar VAR.
Yeah, because it hit Jesus' hand in the 90th minute, and we got a draw. So we've had our fair share of luck, and you could argue maybe the luck's going to run out tomorrow. I hope not, but I think Conte's performance last season was like a blueprint of how you combat this Man City team at the Etihad.
The problem I got with tomorrow is that Man City, when they're usually coming up to face us, they're usually on good form, and maybe we're the ones on bad form when it turns around. Now they're a bit of a wounded animal, Man City, and they're so far behind Arsenal. They know that they need to start going on a run if they want to win this title this year. And Haaland as well, 3 games, no goals. He's going to be chomping at the bit to get back on the score sheet tomorrow. So I'm really fearful for tomorrow, just on that alone.
The fact that he's off form is probably, I would say, is a benefit, because you can see he feeds off that confidence of scoring goal after goal. Obviously, he's going to want a reaction to not scoring 3 games, no doubt about it.
I'm worried about the reaction big time.
But I think I'd rather be facing a Haaland off form than one who's banging in hat-trick after hat-trick after hat-trick.
I just wouldn't prefer to face Haaland at all.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying if I had a choice between a Haaland who's off the back of back-to-back hat-tricks or a Haaland now who's 3 games without a goal, I'd rather face this one for me. But it's going to be so difficult when we're pen deep in our own box, and he's not going to be physically dominated like we were able to do to their attackers last season. So it's going to be so difficult to stop him. I think it's just going to be a lot of it's going to be getting in front of shots, just blocking things, making sure that he's off balance when he's having headers, things like that, making sure the crosses into the box, they don't have time and space when they're getting crosses in and they're not so accurate. It's going to be difficult, but those are the ways we're going to see it, because if we step up for even a second, you know, he's going to be burning Haaland, Dyer like he's not even there. It's going to be so easy. Yeah. So I do worry about that. And even when it comes to Romero's style of play, he's very combative. He likes to get in front of the attacker. But when it comes to someone like Haaland, who's so physically imposing, it's going to be very difficult for Romero to impose himself in those kind of areas.
Yeah, it's very true. And Romero was so key to that performance up at the Etihad last year as well, when it wasn't up against such a physically dominant striker. When you're looking at the opposition predicted lineup, we've gone for Ederson in goal, Walker, Cancelo as fullbacks, Laporte, Kanji, which I actually think it probably will be Ruben Diaz in there, Rodri, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Grealish and Haaland. What is going on with João Cancelo at the moment? Like, since coming back from the World Cup, he's only been playing really a bit part role. When he has been playing, he's been hauled off at half-time, hasn't been really playing that well. What's going on there?
Seems to be going through a period at the moment. Obviously, the World Cup wasn't good for him. He started the World Cup and then found himself out of the team in place of Diogo Dalot of Man United. That must have hurt his ego, knowing that, you know, he's been one of the best fullbacks in the Premier League for 18 months, pretty much. Rave reviews from fans and managers, and getting goals and assists on a regular basis. And then he goes to the World Cup thinking, you know, this is his big opportunity to show what he's about on the world stage, and he gets dropped for a player who up until recently wasn't getting in the Man United team. So that must have been a bit of a pill to swallow. Maybe he's and obviously we know that he was a bit disgruntled about that. He had comments at the World Cup saying that, you know, some managers don't know how to use him, and they don't appreciate his qualities and things like that. And maybe there's just a hangover from that, from the World Cup, because we know that, you know, Pep has used him in a way, very unique style, the way Pep and Man City use their fullbacks compared to most other teams. So he is very specific the way he plays compared to most other fullbacks. So the fact that he maybe Portugal don't play that way and he wasn't used at the World Cup in that way must have been frustrating for him. But I'm sure he's going to get back to his best. I'm sure that it's just a little blip for him right now, but I think it's maybe just hangover from, you know, and Pep has been talking up this Rico Lewis, saying he's the one giving Man City what they need at fullback right now, and that must be hard for Cancelo to hear, knowing that he's been so good for so long, and now Pep is talking up a teenager, saying he's the one right now giving him what he needs at fullback. That must be hard to hear for Cancelo, but look, it's a blip. It's been going on for a few games, but I'm sure once he gets his mind right, he'll be back to his best and be flying again.
In terms of the Man City wingers, we have touched on them a bit so far this stream, but who would you prefer to come against tomorrow when you're looking at the likes of Mahrez, who since the World Cup has started to see more game time and starting to play really well. Grealish as well is starting to chip in with goals and assists since the World Cup, but also players the likes of Foden there as well. So, I mean, who would you like to come up against maybe tomorrow?
I mean, out of Man City's, I'm just looking out of their forward line. In terms of who I'd most like Spurs to face, considering, assume we're going to go with Emerson and Perisic in the wingers. I would rather not have Mahrez there, as much as I think I would rather deal with him and Saka. In terms of their right wingers, who would he be competing with? There's Mahrez, maybe Foden on that side. He usually plays on the left a bit more.
Bernardo Silva potentially as well.
Silva, but I think he's going to play maybe centrally. Who I'd rather face, Mahrez or Bernardo Silva on the right hand side? I think they're very similar when they play on that side. I'd probably rather face Mahrez, just because I know that defensively I think Bernardo Silva is a lot better than him, tracking back, and he's much more able to do defensive duties than someone like Mahrez. But Mahrez is probably more likely to get past you and whip one in from the top corner from 25 yards from Bernardo Silva. So it's a difficult one, but I'd probably rather Mahrez be there. On the left-hand side, would I rather face Grealish or Foden? I think I'd rather face Grealish.
Me as well.
Just about. Although Foden being a left foot on the left-hand side, I think probably suits us a bit more than maybe Grealish always cutting inside and dribbling and stuff like that. But I just think Grealish right now, as much as he's improving of late, just still isn't having the best time of it. And I'd rather fancy my chances in having Foden, who I know is just top class and he's having a great season for Man City.
In terms of the threats that Spurs have, obviously Conte did his press conference yesterday, told us that Bentancur is fit and ready to play in this game. How much of a impact and a positive step is that for us?
Massive, absolutely gigantic. And it's not just his off-the-ball ability, which is massive, and he covers so much ground. And I really believe him being there makes our 3-4-3 not maybe perfect, but a lot more effective off the ball when it comes to covering ground and being able to get closer to the opposition. But what he really is important is in possession in that 3-4-3. I feel like, as much as I love Sarr and Højbjerg, who did a good job, they just haven't been able, when we're playing out the back, to take the ball in possession and with confidence and be able to play on the half turn and play the ball forward progressively. And I do believe having Bentancur there, it lessens the need for Son and Kane and maybe even Kulusevski to drop deep as much as they have been in recent games. And I think they all have more confidence in the knowledge that if we can get the ball into Bentancur, he will be able to hold off a Man City player who does come and press him. And we're going to have more confidence playing the ball into him on occasion, more than we did with Sarr and Højbjerg. And that will put us, especially on the front foot when we do have possession and when we do have teams pressing us. I think it's so important that he's in the team for those kind of occasions. Obviously, he's been out for a few weeks, so I'm hoping that there's not going to be a bedding in period for him and he's going to be coming back as good as he was, but there might be too much to ask for. But I think, especially in this formation, it's massive. He's when I think about the most important player in this formation, I think about Kulusevski and I think about him. I think those are the two most important players to make this formation function as
and those are the two players who we've been missing for the past however long. It's been ages now. But yeah, look, it's really important to get both of those back into the side tomorrow. If it is the lineup that we think it's going to be, that we've been alluding to, how do you think the game's going and what's your score prediction?
I mean, a lot of it is how good Bentancur is going to be when he comes back into it. If he's going to be as good as because he was one of the best centre mids in the league before his injury, on form. So if he comes in as confident and as fresh as he was then, I do believe we got a decent chance of winning, but of getting a result anyway. But if we're going to be making mistakes. And at this point in time, it doesn't really matter what back three. I would go with, by the way, when I talk about back three, I would go with Romero, Dyer and Davis. I would drop Longley. I would go with that back three only because they were the back three at one of the Etihad last season, and they know what it takes they know their role and what it takes to get the win at the Etihad. So I'd go with that back three. But if we're making mistakes, it's going to be very difficult. And I know Haaland, he'll be licking his lips at someone like Dyer and someone like Davis when it comes to battling for crosses in the penalty box and running in behind and things like that. So it's going to be difficult. But if we can keep it as tight as possible and congested, if we can really reduce mistakes to a minimum, and we can get Bentancur on the ball, and we can get that front three, Kane dropping deep, Kulusevski and Son running in behind, there's the blueprint there, 100%. There's a blueprint there of getting results, especially given how City are playing right now. But it's impossible. Like, I can sit here and say tactically this and tactically that, but then if Lloris drops a clanger, what can I say? Like, well, how can I predict that? You know what I mean? I mean, you probably could, but
so predict it.
No, I can't predict Dyer heading it back to Haaland and him rounding the keeper. You know, I can't predict that.
When it happens every game, I think you can predict it.
So if we're not going to make any mistakes, I actually think we can get a result. But if we do make, if there's one or two individual errors and that lead to goals, then we're losing. So
score prediction?
So I think we're going to lose.
By?
2-1.
2-1 Man City. I've just got this feeling tomorrow that just similar feeling to last year when we played Man City at the Etihad, where everything was just going wrong for us. We had no hope whatsoever. Man City are a team that, you know, we've got their number sometimes. 4 out of the last 5 times. 4 out of the last 5 times we've beaten them. And I just think it's so classic Spurs if we just go and win tomorrow. It'll be just so classic, and I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, I can't tell you any sense of why I think it's going to happen apart from just because it's just classic Spurs, really. It's just absolutely classic.
It's weird. Spurs, well, the thing with Spurs is as soon as you give up hope and as soon as you think this is it, it's done, like there's no point moving forward, that's when it turns.
Yeah.
You have to give up hope first. As long as you have the hope,
that's the thing.
Then they keep letting you down.
That's the thing. Because of what I'm saying right now, because of what I'm saying, it probably means we're definitely losing.
Yeah, you have
because
to give
of what
up.
I'm saying.
You have to give up all semblance of hope. As long as you cling on to that hope, it's not going to happen. But as soon as you lose the hope, that's when it happens.
It's true. It's so true. But I just got a sneaky feeling tomorrow, which probably means we'll lose. But I'm going to go for a repeat scoreline in 3-2 to Spurs tomorrow at their Etihad. I want to know your score predictions, so put them in the comment section below. Tell me what you think the lineup's going to be as well. But that is your match preview for the Man City game at the Etihad tomorrow, 8 o'clock kickoff.